Evan walked home slowly after a long day at the repair shop. His hands were tired, his clothes were dusty, and all he wanted was some quiet sleep. The night was cold, and the street lamps flickered like they were half alive. The road was almost empty. Only the sound of a distant engine and a few soft winds moved through the alleyways. Evan zipped his jacket and kept walking. He lived in a small rented room behind the old market, and he always passed through the same alley every night. But tonight, something felt different. Something felt wrong. When he stepped into the narrow alley, he froze. He heard a very soft whisper. It was so soft that he wondered if he imagined it. Human? Evan turned around sharply. No one was behind him. The alley looked empty. But then he heard it again, this time even weaker. Human, please. He stepped forward slowly. His heartbeat grew faster. He wasn't scared, he just didn't know what to expect. He followed the voice and reached a dark corner behind some old crates. There, hiding like a small shadow, was a little girl. But she wasn't human. Her skin was pale blue. Her eyes were large and glowing faint purple, full of fear. She wore a small dress that looked dusty, like she had been running for a long time. Her tiny hands held something close to her chest, a broken toy shaped like a small animal. The toy's metal surface had cracks and one side was crushed. The girl's voice shook as she whispered, "Human. Please fix my toy." Evan knelt down slowly so he wouldn't scare her. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Why are you alone at this hour?" The girl lifted the toy with trembling hands. Mom dropped it when she fainted." Her voice broke in the middle of the sentence. Evan felt a cold wave inside his chest. "Fainted? Where?" He asked gently, "Where is your mom now?" The girl pointed toward the end of the alley, but didn't move from her spot. "She fell. She didn't wake up. I tried to call her, but she didn't move. I got scared. I don't know what to do." Her eyes became watery. She tried to wipe her tears, but her small fingers shook too much. Evan felt a tightness in his chest. He could not just walk away. Even if she was an alien child, she was still a child scared, alone, and helpless. He slowly reached out his hand. "Come on, show me where she is. I can try to help." The girl didn't take his hand. She was still scared. But she stood up carefully and took a few steps forward. Evan followed her quietly, watching the surroundings. The alley grew darker as they walked deeper inside. The air became colder. The lights behind them flickered again, and the silence grew thicker. Then Evan saw her. A woman, an alien woman lying on the cold ground, half leaning against a wall. Her skin was the same pale color as the girl's. Her breathing was shallow. Her eyes were closed. She looked exhausted, maybe even injured. The girl ran to her mother and touched her arm. "Mom, he's a human. But he will help, right?" Evan crouched beside the woman and checked if she was breathing properly. She was alive but very weak. Maybe she hadn't eaten. Maybe she was sick. Maybe something else had happened. He didn't know yet. But before he could say anything, a sudden noise came from behind them. A loud metallic sound. Like a scanner. Like someone or something searching the area. The little girl gasped and clutched Evan's shirt tightly. Her eyes went wide with fear. They are looking for us," she whispered. Evan's heart skipped a beat. "Who?" She shook her head quickly. "Bad people, hunters. They want Mom. And they want this." She held up the broken toy. The toy? Why the toy? But there was no time to ask. The metallic scanning sound grew louder. A red light swept across the walls, getting closer and closer. Evan could see shadows moving just outside the alley. The girl pressed herself against him, shaking. "Please don't let them take us." Evan swallowed hard. He was just a human mechanic. He wasn't a fighter, he wasn't a hero, and he definitely wasn't ready for dangerous aliens. But he couldn't leave them. Not now. He whispered, "Stay behind me. Stay quiet." The scanning light passed again. The footsteps grew heavier. Someone was coming closer. Someone dangerous. Evan looked at the unconscious mother, then at the trembling little girl. And in that moment, he made a fast final decision. He grabbed the girl's hand gently and whispered, "Come on. I'll protect you." Because sometimes, even an ordinary human becomes extraordinary when someone small and scared needs them. Evan did not waste a second. He lifted the little alien girl's mother gently, supporting her head with care. She was light, almost too light, as if she hadn't eaten properly for days. Her skin felt cold, and her breathing was shallow, like each breath was a struggle. The girl stayed right beside Evan, holding onto his jacket tightly with her tiny blue fingers. Her eyes kept jumping around the dark alley, watching for the dangerous shadows moving closer. "Where do you live?" Evan whispered. The girl shook her head quickly. We don't have a home here. We came from the other side. Far away." Evan frowned. "Then where were you going?" "To find a human," she whispered softly. "Mom said humans can fix machines. And she wanted you to fix the toy." Evan looked at the broken toy again. The more he saw it, the more he felt something was strange. It didn't look like a normal toy. There were tiny symbols carved into its metal surface, symbols he had never seen on any technology before. The cracked part revealed faint glowing lines inside, almost like circuits made of light. But there was no time to think about that now. The scanning light swept across the ground again, brighter this time, and the metallic sound grew louder. Whoever was searching for them was getting closer. "Follow me," Evan whispered. "We need to get off the street." He gently lifted the alien woman in his arms. The girl walked beside him, holding his sleeve tightly. Her steps were small and fast, filled with fear that every second counted. They moved through the back of the alley, past old metal barrels and broken doors. Evan's workshop wasn't far. It was on the same street he always passed. If they could reach it quietly, they might have a chance to hide and help the mother. But as they approached the main street, the girl suddenly froze. "Wait," she whispered sharply. Evan turned. "What is it?" She looked up at him with fear-filled eyes. "You must not let them see Mom. If they find her, they will take her away forever." Evan didn't know who they were. Government? Aliens? Criminals? He didn't have answers yet, but he could see the fear in the girl's trembling eyes. That fear was real. They waited for a moment until the scanning light passed by the entrance of the alley. As soon as the street fell silent, Evan rushed toward his workshop, keeping the girl close. They reached the back door and slipped inside quietly. Evan locked the door behind them and lowered the alien woman onto the small bed he kept in the corner. "Will she be okay?" the girl asked softly, her voice breaking. "I don't know," Evan said honestly, kneeling beside the woman. "But we'll try." He checked her breathing again. Her pulse was weak. Her skin was turning paler by the minute. She needed help. Maybe medical help. But bringing her to a human hospital could be dangerous for her and for the little girl. Humans didn't react kindly to aliens. There were rules, restrictions, fear, and sometimes cruelty. The girl climbed onto the bed beside her mother and held her hand. "Mom, please wake up," she whispered again and again, but the woman did not move. Evan watched them quietly, his heart tightening. He didn't know these aliens. He didn't know their history or their danger. But right now, they were just a child who needed help and a mother fighting to stay alive. "Can you tell me what happened to her?" Evan asked gently. The girl wiped her tears with the back of her hand. She She was running from them. They wanted her to join their group. She refused. She said they do bad things. And you? Evan asked. They want me too, she whispered. They need someone small. Someone they can use. Evan felt a strong anger rise inside him. They won't get you, he said firmly. The girl looked at him, unsure. Humans were scary to her people. But Evan's voice sounded safe, different. Suddenly, a weak sound came from the woman on the bed. A soft whisper. Evan leaned closer. Ma'am? Can you hear me? The woman's eyes opened halfway. She looked at Evan with exhausted but aware eyes. She tried to speak, her voice dry like sand. Protect. My child. Then she reached out with a shaky hand and pointed toward the broken toy. Fix it, she whispered before falling unconscious again. The girl gasped. Mom, Mom! Evan held her shoulders gently. She's still alive, but she's weak. I'll do everything I can. The girl slowly nodded, trusting him. Evan picked up the toy and stared at the glowing cracks. Something inside hummed softly, almost like a heartbeat. What kind of toy was this? Why was it so important? As Evan placed it on his workbench, a shadow moved outside the window. Someone had found their location. And the real danger was only beginning, you said. Evan stood completely still when he saw the shadow outside the workshop window. It wasn't a normal shadow. It moved with purpose, slow, heavy, trained. Like someone who knew how to track people without being seen. The little alien girl instantly grabbed Evan's arm, her small fingers cold with fear. They found us, she whispered, her eyes wide. Evan lowered himself, hiding both of them under the window. Stay quiet, he whispered back. He peeked again. A thin red scanning line swept across the street, moving from one house to another. The figure holding the scanner wore dark armor, with strange glowing lines running across the chest, nothing Evan had ever seen before. The armor seemed alien. The movements were fast, sharp, and precise. These were not simple criminals. These were trained hunters. The girl buried her face in Evan's jacket. They work for the group that wants Mom, she said, her voice cracking. They always find people, no matter where they hide. Evan clenched his jaw. Not tonight, he thought. He returned to the workshop bed and checked the alien mother again. She was still unconscious, breathing shallowly. Her condition was getting worse. The girl sat beside her, gently stroking her mother's hand, trying not to cry too loudly. Evan knew he had to act fast. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small toolbox. Inside were pliers, mini screwdrivers, thermal glue, and some repair chips. He turned toward the cracked toy and placed it gently on the workbench. The girl looked up. Are you going to fix it? I'll try, Evan whispered. Maybe it can tell us something. The toy looked simple on the outside, shaped like a small animal, but when he opened the cracked panel, he found something extraordinary. Inside were glowing symbols and tiny circuits that pulsed like veins. The light inside shifted slowly, responding to Evan's touch. The circuits were nothing like human technology. They were organic, alive, almost breathing. This isn't just a toy, Evan murmured. The girl nodded slowly. It's a memory toy. It holds important memories. From my mother's family. Mom said we needed a human to fix it because humans understand broken things better than anyone. Evan felt a strange warmth in his chest at those words. Humans understand broken things. Maybe that was true. He used a small tool to adjust the cracked circuit. When he touched a glowing symbol, the toy emitted a soft hum like a tiny heartbeat. The girl leaned closer, her fear slowly turning into hope. But then, thud, someone knocked at the workshop door. Hard, loud, aggressive. The girl gasped and covered her mouth. The mother stirred weakly on the bed. Evan instinctively turned off the workshop lights. A deep voice echoed from outside. "We know you're in there. Open the door." Evan held his breath. The girl clutched his arm tighter. Another hunter knocked again, making the door shake. "Your escape ends tonight. Give us the woman and the child, and no one else will be harmed." Evan looked around the workshop, trying to think. His heart raced, but his mind stayed sharp. He wasn't a fighter, but he was a problem solver. He whispered to the girl, "Stay behind the workbench. Don't move unless I tell you." She nodded, trembling. Evan quietly moved toward the back wall of the workshop and grabbed a metal pipe. It wasn't a weapon, but it could buy them a few seconds. He slowly approached the door. The hunters outside began forcing the lock. Tools scraped metal. Screws twisted. The whole door vibrated. Evan had maybe a minute before they broke in. He quickly returned to the girl. "Is there another way out? A tunnel? A hidden exit?" She shook her head. "No. Mom and I only came through the alleys." Evan exhaled sharply. "Then we create our own way." He hurried to the back of the workshop where an old ventilation shaft was bolted shut. He kicked the lower panel twice until it loosened. Dust fell to the floor. The opening was small, but the girl could fit. Maybe even the mother if he could carry her. But before he acted, the hunters shouted again. "This is your final warning." The lock gave a loud snap. They were entering. The girl hugged her toy tightly. "Please don't let them take us." "I won't," Evan said, his voice low and firm. He lifted the unconscious mother, carried her to the vent, and carefully pushed the girl inside. "I'll follow right behind," Evan whispered. The door exploded inward. A beam of red light cut through the darkness. The hunters stepped inside, weapons aimed. Their armor glowed like fire in the shadows. They scanned the room and stopped right where the family had been moments ago. But Evan had already slipped into the ventilation shaft, pulling the panel shut behind them. The girl held her breath. The mother was barely conscious. Evan crawled through the tight space, his heart pounding. Behind them, the hunters' voices echoed. "Find them. They're close." The chase had officially begun. The ventilation shaft was narrow, dusty, and cold. Evan crawled as fast as he could, carrying the alien mother on his back and guiding the little girl ahead of him. Every movement echoed softly in the metal tunnel. Behind them, the hunters' angry voices filled the workshop, footsteps heavy, armor clinking. The girl held the glowing toy close to her chest, its broken pieces faintly shining in the dark. "Are they coming?" she whispered nervously. Evan nodded slightly. "Yes, but we're not letting them catch us." They reached the end of the shaft, where a rusted metal grill blocked the exit. Evan pushed it with his shoulder, but it barely moved. The girl crawled closer to help, placing her small hands beside his, but the grill didn't budge. Suddenly, the toy in her hands pulsed with a stronger light, almost as if it sensed danger. A soft tone echoed through the metal tunnel. The girl gasped. "It's waking up." Evan didn't understand what she meant, but he didn't have time to ask. He pushed harder one more time, and with a loud crack, the grill broke open. Fresh air poured in from outside. Evan carefully lowered the alien mother through the opening into a small abandoned courtyard behind the old repair shop. It was dark, surrounded by tall walls, but at least hidden. They stepped outside just as a loud metallic crash echoed from the ventilation shaft behind them. "They're inside," the girl whispered. "Then we keep moving." Evan carried the mother through the courtyard and slipped through another narrow opening between two buildings. The city streets ahead were dim, quiet, and mostly empty. The girl kept her eyes on him the whole time, trusting him completely now. But before they could take more than 5 steps, the toy in her hand started humming, a soft vibration that grew stronger every second. Evan stopped. What's happening? The girl looked confused and scared. I don't know. It only does this when it feels danger. Or when it remembers something. Remembers? A toy that could remember? Evan knelt down beside her and gently examined the glowing cracks on the toy. The light inside shifted in patterns, almost like a heartbeat mixed with a code. He touched the cracked symbol again, and the toy responded with a small spark of energy. Then, suddenly, a projection shot out from the toy. A faint, holographic image formed in the air. The girl gasped and grabbed Evan's arm. That's Mom's memory. The projection showed the alien mother speaking to another alien, both looking worried. Words echoed in a soft, distorted voice. They will come for the child. The crystal is the key. The girl must never fall into their hands. The image flickered, then shifted. Another memory appeared, this time showing the same hunters in their dark armor, taking something from a burning alien ship. Their leader held a glowing crystal that looked exactly like the one inside the toy. This contains power no one should use, the memory mother whispered. Hide the second crystal in the child's toy. Only a human can repair it if it breaks. The projection faded. The toy went silent again, the glowing cracks dimming as if it had used too much energy. Evan stared at it, stunned. So the toy has a crystal inside? The girl nodded slowly. Yes, Mom hid it there. She said the hunters want it. They say it gives power. A power that can control minds. But Mom said it's too dangerous for anyone to use. Evan felt a chill run down his back. Mind control? These hunters weren't just kidnappers. They wanted something that could control entire worlds. Before Evan could speak, a beam of red scanning light swept across the street behind them. The hunters were close again. Too close. Run, Evan whispered. He lifted the mother again and moved quickly through the street. The girl ran beside him, clutching the toy like a lifeline. They turned down a narrow path behind an apartment block and slipped into a hidden stairway leading to the basement. Evan pushed open the door and locked it from the inside. They stood in an old storage room filled with broken furniture, dusty cabinets, and tools. It wasn't comfortable, but it was quiet. The girl set the toy down gently on a small table while Evan laid her mother on a mattress. Is she getting worse? The girl asked softly. Evan checked the woman's pulse. It was weaker than before. He frowned. She needs medical help. But human hospitals won't take aliens. And if we call anyone, the hunters might track us. The girl wiped her tears. Then, is she going to die? Evan reached out and held her hand. No, I won't let that happen. The toy hummed again, just a small sound, like a reminder. Evan picked it up. Maybe this crystal inside can help her. Or maybe it can help us understand what we're facing. Before he could examine it further, the walls around them shook softly. A deep boom echoed from the street above. The hunters had found their trail again. Evan stood up slowly, looking at the little girl and her mother. The toy glowed faintly in his hands. This was no longer about fixing a broken toy. This was about stopping something dangerous and saving 2 innocent lives. And Evan knew there was no turning back now. Evan stood in the dim basement, the toy glowing faintly in his hands, while the alien girl watched him with wide, frightened eyes. Above them, the hunter's footsteps echoed like thunder rolling across the street. The old building shook again, dust fell from the ceiling, and a metal pipe rattled loudly. The girl jumped and quickly covered her ears. They're coming closer, she whispered. Evan nodded, his jaw tight. Then we have to be ready. He placed the toy gently on the table beside the unconscious alien mother. Her breathing was weak, but still steady. The little girl knelt beside her mother, holding her hand tightly, as if her touch alone could keep the woman alive. Another explosion hit the street above strong enough to shake the entire basement. This time the girl screamed. Evan moved quickly and grabbed a heavy wrench from the floor. It wasn't a weapon, but right now it was the only thing he had. He pressed a finger to his lips. "Stay quiet. Hide behind those crates." The girl hesitated for a moment, then obeyed. She pulled the toy close to her chest and crouched behind a stack of old wooden boxes, trying not to make any sound. The mother lay motionless. The hunters were closing in, and Evan was the only thing standing between them and the innocent family. A sudden blast shook the building again. This time, the basement door groaned as something heavy rammed into it. Bang! Bang! Each hit was harder than the last. Evan took a deep breath. He had fixed countless machines in his life-broken engines, old circuits, damaged gears, but he had never stopped trained alien hunters. Still, fear didn't control him. A strange courage filled him instead. He didn't know where it came from, but maybe it came from the little girl who trusted him completely. With another devastating impact, the metal door bent inward. A glowing red line tore across it as a weapon sliced the lock. The girl whispered shakily from behind the crates, "They're here." "I know," Evan said quietly. The door exploded open. Two hunters stepped inside, their armor glowing with red symbols, their helmets shining with dark visors. They carried high-power staff weapons that hummed with deadly energy. One hunter scanned the room immediately. "The human is here," he said in a cold metallic voice. "And the child is close." The other hunter pointed his staff directly at Evan. "Step aside. Give us the girl and the woman. We don't need you alive." Evan's grip tightened on the wrench. He breathed slowly, carefully, focusing his mind. "No," he said simply. The hunters paused. Then one laughed a horrible robotic laugh. "You are a human mechanic. What do you think you can do?" Evan didn't answer. Instead, he slammed his hand against a switch on the wall. Instantly, the basement roared to life. Sparks flew as old machines awakened. Metal saws spun. Hydraulic arms dropped from the ceiling. An automatic welding torch burst into flame. The hunters stepped back in surprise. "What?" Evan moved fast. He hit another switch, and a hydraulic arm swung forward, smashing into the first hunter's helmet. The hunter stumbled, dizzy. The second raised his weapon, but Evan ducked behind a heavy tool cabinet. The hunter's energy beam shot out, slicing through a stack of metal sheets behind him. Evan rolled out, grabbed an old metal chain, and threw it at the second hunter's legs. The chain wrapped around the armor joints, locking them. The hunter lost balance and crashed onto the floor with a loud smash. The girl peeked from behind the crates, her eyes wide with shock and hope. "Human, you can do it," she whispered. Evan almost smiled, but the fight wasn't over. The first hunter recovered and charged at Evan with a roar. Evan grabbed a welding torch and pressed the trigger. A bright flame burst out, making the hunter raise his arm to shield himself. Evan used the moment to swing the heavy wrench at the left arm joint. The armor sparked and cracked. The hunter staggered back, grabbing the damaged limb. Evan kicked him hard, sending him crashing into the shelves. Tools and metal parts rained down on him. Just then, the toy in the girl's hands glowed brightly again, so bright the entire room lit up. A barrier of light formed around the girl and her mother. The hunters froze in fear. "The crystal has awakened!" One shouted. "We cannot let it bond with the child." Bond? Evan didn't know what that meant, but at that moment, the toy's power surged. A wave of energy burst from it, throwing both hunters across the room. Their armor sparked violently, systems malfunctioning. The girl looked up, terrified and amazed. "Human, the toy protected us." The hunters crawled toward the exit, scared of the little girl, scared of the crystal, and scared of the human who refused to break. "This is not over," one hissed before escaping through the broken door. We will return for the child. Evan stood still, breathing hard, every muscle shaking from the fight. The girl ran to him and hugged him tightly. You saved us. Again, Evan gently placed a hand on her head. This isn't over, he whispered. But I'm not letting anyone take you or your mom. In the corner, the toy continued to glow softly, as if waiting for its next secret to be revealed. The basement fell silent after the hunters escaped, but the silence felt dangerous, too heavy, too tense, like the air itself was holding its breath. Evan stood still, the wrench loose in his hand, sweat running down his face. His heart beat fast, but his focus stayed sharp. The little alien girl remained close to him, the glowing toy cradled in her arms like a living heart. Her mother lay weak on the mattress, barely breathing. The girl crawled to her mother's side and lifted her hand. Mom, please wake up. We need you. But the woman didn't respond. Evan knelt beside her, checking her pulse again. It was getting dangerously slow. She won't last long like this, he said quietly. We need to find a way to help her. The girl looked at him with teary eyes. Humans have medicine, right? Medicine, yes, Evan said. But human medicine might not work on alien biology. Then what do we do? Before Evan could answer, the toy pulsed again, this time with a deeper, stronger light. A soft vibration filled the room, like a heartbeat mixed with an alarm. The girl gasped. It's speaking. The toy projected a faint hologram into the air, a small sphere of glowing light with swirling symbols. The image flickered before forming into a clearer shape, an alien crest, a symbol of the mother's lineage. What is that? Evan asked. It's our family seal, the girl whispered. It appears only when danger is too close, or when the crystal chooses a protector. Evan frowned. Protector? The girl nodded slowly. Mom said the crystal chooses someone who has a pure heart, someone who will not use its power for control. The hologram shifted again, showing an alien map routes, paths, and a glowing point. That place, the girl said, pointing at the glowing spot, her hands trembling. That's the healing chamber. For our people. It's the only place Mom can be saved. Evan watched the map closely. It was far from their current location, far beyond the human zone, far beyond safety. And I'm guessing the hunters know about this place too? The girl nodded again. Yes, they will watch the path. They know Mom is weak. They know the crystal is waking up. Suddenly, the building above them shook violently, sending dust raining down from the ceiling. Boom, the hunters had returned. And this time, they brought help. Evan quickly stood up. They're trying to break the upper floor. Why? The girl cried. They want to bury us alive. He grabbed the girl's shoulders. We need to move, now. He lifted the unconscious mother again, but she felt heavier, her body weakening fast. The girl ran ahead, guiding him through the storage room and toward a back exit. But before they reached it, something unexpected happened. The toy flashed brighter than ever so bright. Evan had to shield his eyes. The girl didn't move. She stood still as if frozen. The crystal's light wrapped around her like tiny threads of energy. The girl slowly looked up at Evan, her eyes glowing the same color as the toy. Human, she whispered, her voice suddenly steady, calm, and powerful. The crystal. It chose me. Evan stepped back slightly, stunned. What does that mean? She looked down at her small hands. The energy pulsed through her fingertips like gentle winds. It means I can protect us. She walked toward the basement door and placed her hand on it. The toy glowed brighter, responding to her touch. A soft hum filled the air, and suddenly, whoom! A massive pulse of energy burst from the door, shooting upward through the entire building. It tore through the wooden floor, broke through concrete, and blasted out onto the street. Above them, The hunters screamed in confusion and fear. What is happening? The crystal energy, she has activated it. The girl stumbled back after the blast, breathing hard. Evan caught her before she fell. Are you okay? She nodded weakly. It takes a lot of strength. But it scared them away for a moment. Evan looked at her with new understanding. This wasn't just a scared little girl anymore. She was connected to something powerful, something ancient. But she was still just a child. She couldn't control the crystal forever. We need to leave, Evan said firmly. Before they recover. The girl looked at her mother, then at the glowing toy. Will you help us reach the healing chamber? Evan didn't hesitate. Yes, I promise to protect you both. And I will. The girl smiled weakly, trusting him completely. Evan lifted the mother again. The girl held the glowing toy. And together they headed toward the exit, knowing the hunters would return soon. Knowing the danger was only growing, but also knowing they were no longer running blindly. They had a goal now. A destination that could save the mother. A crystal awakening. And a child who now carried a power the galaxy feared. The chase wasn't ending. It was evolving. And Evan was ready for whatever came next. Evan pushed open the basement's back exit, stepping into the cold night with the unconscious alien mother in his arms, and the little girl walking beside him, holding the glowing toy. The city streets were nearly silent, but the silence felt like a warning, too empty, too dark, as if every shadow was hiding watching eyes. The girl stayed close to Evan, her steps small and careful. Her eyes glowed softly from the crystal's energy still inside her. Human, will the bad ones come again? She whispered. Evan nodded honestly. Yes, they won't stop. Not until they have you, your mom. Or the crystal. The girl tightened her grip on the toy. Then we must reach the healing chamber fast. A distant roar echoed across the rooftops. Not human. Not natural. The hunters were searching again. But they sounded angrier this time, desperate. Evan looked at the holomap projection from the toy. The healing chamber was hidden deep within the abandoned industrial sector, far from humans, far from patrols. If they reached it, the mother might survive. And the crystal might finally stop reacting. They moved through silent alleys, past broken street lamps and empty markets. The little girl kept looking back nervously, expecting shadows to jump at them. Evan could feel the tension too, like the air thickened with danger. But then the toy flickered again and projected another image, this time of the healing chamber itself. A tall structure shaped like an ancient temple, surrounded by alien vines and glowing stone patterns. That's it, the girl whispered. Evan nodded. Let's go. They reached the old industrial road, filled with abandoned trucks and rusted pipes. It looked dead, lifeless, but the air felt alive with hidden energy. Then, whoosh! A large shadow landed in front of them. The hunters had arrived first. This time, there were more of them, 6 hunters in full armor, their helmets glowing red. Their leader stepped forward, taller than the rest, carrying a staff crackling with dark electricity. Human, the leader said, voice deep and metallic. You have interfered too long. Hand over the crystal child. The girl clung to Evan's leg, shaking. Evan stepped in front of her, setting his jaw. No, he said. I won't. The leader tilted his head. You are a simple mechanic. You are nothing. Why risk your life for someone not of your kind? Evan felt anger rise inside him. Because she trusted me. And because her mom needs help. That's all that matters. The hunters raised their weapons. The leader pointed at the girl. Take her. The girl stepped back, fear rising, but something else rose inside her too. The crystal inside the toy pulsed again. And the toy, responding to her fear, projected a protective barrier like before. But this time, It was stronger, much stronger. A dome of shimmering light burst outward, pushing the hunters back several steps. Their armor struggled to resist the force. "She is bonding with it," one hunter shouted. "We must stop her before." "No," the leader barked. "I want the child alive." The girl cried out, "Human, I can't hold it. It hurts." The barrier flickered. She was too weak to maintain it alone. Evan had no weapons, no armor, no special powers. Just courage and a promise. He looked around desperately and spotted a broken steel pole lying on the ground. Without thinking, he grabbed it and charged at the nearest hunter like a man who had nothing left to lose. The hunter swung his electric staff, but Evan blocked it with the pole, sparks flying. His hands burned, his knees shook, but he didn't stop. He slammed the pole into the hunter's chest plate, knocking the alien off balance. Another hunter rushed in. Evan dodged and swung again, hitting the leg joint. Armor cracked. The girl watched him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Human, please don't get hurt." But Evan didn't hear her. He fought like someone who carried a whole world on his shoulders. Then the crystal reacted again, this time sensing Evan's bravery instead of fear. The toy glowed. The girl's eyes brightened. The barrier stabilized. Light burst outward once more, stronger than ever, sending all hunters flying back. Their weapons fell to the ground. Their armor dimmed. Several didn't move at all. The leader crawled up slowly, terrified. The human, the girl together. The crystal responds to both. Realizing defeat, he staggered away. "This isn't the end. We will return." Then he vanished into the shadows with the remaining hunters. Silence fell. The girl dropped to her knees, exhausted. Evan rushed to her. "Are you okay?" She nodded weakly. "The crystal listens to hearts. Yours is strong. It trusts you too." They reached the healing chamber moments later. The structure glowed when the girl approached, as if welcoming her. Evan placed the mother inside a circular platform. The chamber lit up, scanning her with soft blue light. The girl held Evan's hand tightly. "Will she live?" Evan watched as the light healed her wounds. Her breathing strengthened, and color returned to her face. "She will," he said softly. "She's going to be okay." When the mother finally opened her eyes, she looked at Evan with deep gratitude. "You saved us. A simple human. Protected two aliens. You hold a heart stronger than any warrior." The girl hugged Evan tightly, whispering, "You fixed more than my toy." The mother smiled warmly. "Evan, our world owes you. If you wish, you may come with us. Live among us. Be part of our family." Evan looked at the glowing chamber, the healed mother, and the little girl holding his hand. For the first time, he felt like he belonged somewhere. He smiled softly. "I think I'd like that." And so, the simple mechanic made a choice, one that changed his life, their lives, and maybe the future of two worlds forever.